Villora, a small village in the Apennine Mountains in the province of Varsi, an hour from the city of Parma, Italy. The place where my mother grew up, and myself alongside my brothers frequently holidayed in the summer growing up, with its temperate climate, stunning views, slower pace, and the many relatives, farmers and extended families giving me an indication of how life might have been had my parents not emigrated. It was a true eye-opener for this city boy, and served as a marker for my future away from stifling London recently to the more countrified surroundings of Kent, where I live today. I picked up Italian quickly on my summer holidays here, though the local dialect was generally spoken by more senior residents and is still spoken now. Sadly, the population has dwindled and, as we will see, the signs of abandonment is becoming all too apparent. Two of the houses in the village are now for sale, but they've been on for sale for years. Just no one wants to buy them. Lots of issues as a result of damp, especially coming from underneath. This house has been for sale for at least 6 years, and they both belong to relatives. And this one is apparently on the market for around 60,000 euros, and no one wants to snap it up. It's just too bad condition inside. Further down, some of the other houses are still being used by surviving relatives of relatives who mainly just come up here on the odd weekend or for summer break. Traditionally, August is the month where a lot of businesses close and People make their holidays. So those originally from this village, whose sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, etc., all have gone to live in the cities over the years, come back here occasionally, spend a bit of time back in their spiritual home. But it's nothing like the atmosphere it used to be here. This house holds a special place for people here in Villora, in particularly, as it was the one place that served as the local shop. It was divided up downstairs into a shop on the left hand side, just selling regular daily groceries, and on the right hand side was a bar, which was a great social place for locals to go in, watch TV, play cards, especially with the old Italian playing cards and old traditional Italian games such as briscola, where they used to hold a tournament here. My grandfather won it once. Hey! There were tables outside at one point. People would gather in the evenings, and the proprietor of the place used to be a good accordion player. So was always known as the accordion man in the village. But this is happening all over northern Italy and from the south, as modern society changes the traditions, and people have to leave and find work in the cities and just come back here to spend their time when they're off work. The local church, probably built, we guess, about 200 years ago, maybe, possibly more. Still in good nick, still gets looked after inside. There is a lot of evidence of wear and tear and rusty metal and windows and very, very old blinds, etc. But every half hour the bell still chimes in the traditional Catholic manner. My mum once said to me that back in the 1950s, where you didn't have an actual water supply in the houses, unsurprisingly, they would go from the house up in Lavati, not far from where we are, just up here at the top, walk all the way down this mountain and then into that far town of Varsi, or actually to the bottom just before it, where you've got the river in the valley, the river Cerno. Take all the clothes, because my great-grandmother and father had 14 kids, so some of the kids who were there, they would help them. Take all these clothes down to the bottom of the river, wash them there, and then walk all the way back up, carrying the wet and soaked clothes back on their shoulders, back in bags or whatever they had, all the way back up to home. It's 6 kilometers direct from here to that town of Varsi, 5 kilometers down to the river. So imagine doing, going up all these windy roads. There was also a well at one point in a village further down from here, and that's where they would bring their pails and go all the way down, collect the water for the house and bring it back up. There were no such things as inside toilets or anything like that. So my mum told me that she would go to the local barn where the cows were and do her business in there, and toilet paper was things like leaves. There were no toys for the kids, so cardboard boxes was like kind of the modern day Xboxes, and everywhere you went there was no transport, so you just walked. The sides of the church here hold some very significant history. In 1944, just before the war ended, the SS soldiers had invaded northern Italy, and all the men of the village had to go into hiding in the woods or wherever they could go, and all the women and children of the village were rounded up and stood along the sides of the wall. It was either this side or the other side, held at gunpoint by SS officers and told that they would all be killed one by one if they didn't inform on where all their husbands and brothers were. Fortunately, the officers got called away at the very last minute. My grandmother was one of the people up against this wall, holding my 2-year-old mother in her arms. I was that close, and she was that close to not having a life and not existing. The view from the village is of the grandiose mountain Dosso, as it's called, and in the distance there, a little bit sticking up, that's called Rocca. And they're all small towns and villages, with the main town of Varsi down at the bottom there. People still go on excursions to climb both here, the mountain of Carameto, the one that I'm standing on, and the mountain of Dosso, the two biggest mountains in the Parma region. You've got hiking areas, you've got people that go up on dirt bikes and motorbikes and stuff like that. So it's a great place for outside activity. And here's the local cemetery for Villora. So many old faces of my youth, passed away over the years, and I'm all now recongregated in here. Inevitable. We're talking 40 years ago. I used to come up here and the whole place would be very lively, especially in the evenings. Everyone would congregate down in the main square and socialise. There are, however, one or two faces that have still passed the test of time, and it was fantastic to come back here and reunite with them. There was this idea that a lot of the old houses here that were abandoned or no longer lived in were going to be on sale and snapped up as holiday homes by people from Germany, from the UK, from wherever. We've not really seen that. People haven't wanted to come here. Why, we're not sure. Because for me, I'm glad that we still have somewhere where we can have these kind of views, this kind of peace and quiet, and this amount of nature.
Temporale, yeah. E lì ci sono i lampi fuori, eh. Guarda.
More sensational views here, this time from the houses of Gallosi, a little bit of a walk up from Villora. But look at this. Now we're heading to the settlement of Lovati, which was my great-grandparents' house and area around. My mum's grandparents, who had 14 children. That was a hell of a life back then, looking after all of them. The school where my mum went to when she was growing up. Sadly falling apart now.
My grandfather and my grandmother,
Yeah.
they got married. There was nothing, but he was a builder, he was a carpenter, my grandfather, he was iron
I'm Manga.
manga, was everything. So he built this house. And he had all his children here.
All 14.
He built that himself too.
Mm-hmm.
With his sons when they were old enough, you know. They
Yeah.
built that together. And then this one got old and
Yeah, of course. They left it
and now
to decay.
they start to live there.
And then eventually they all grew up, moved away.
Yeah, of course. And then
Some moved to
brothers
Villora.
and sisters, they're all dead. Look at the oven.
Beautiful.
Having a barbecue.
This is incredibly sad to see. Once, it's a very small area, simply known as the location of Casa Notchivelli, the Notchivelli houses, which was, it's my surname for real. Relatives of my grandfather, brothers, sisters, all sorts. And now the place is completely abandoned, decaying, falling apart. This was my grandfather's brother's house. Hoping for some possible signs of life here. You could say this village is frozen in time, but time doesn't even wait for that. Many buildings are now falling to the ground and will continue to do so. This is the house that Henry Cooper recuperated. Found some sign of life. There's a pet dog there. So somebody's here. Not completely abandoned then. Just concerned that anyone that still comes back here to spend time in a house surrounded by such desolation like this. Not something I'm sure I could do. Some signs around saying don't enter the abandoned houses. Pretty obvious really why. Certainly a chilling state of affairs. My mother's telling me that when Henry Cooper married Albina, who's not related to us, he restored the house that she was living in there, and for his sons to come over and spend their times in Italy in the summer holidays, which they absolutely loved. And now it's possibly her brother that's still alive and is still occupying the house. That might have been Henry Cooper's brother-in-law. Just over there in the distance is where my own father grew up. Just outside this area is all part of the location of Notchivelli. I won't film too much here because there's other people living there now, but my dad had this house for quite a few years before selling it, and it was a good place for him to come and spend the summer holidays whenever he could. Whereas on the other side here, more significantly, is the house where he grew up. My grandparents' house on my dad's side, it's actually been refurbished a few years ago, but yeah, this is where we used to come to spend a few days with my dad's parents. Very lonely around here in the mountains, quite far from anywhere, but it was interesting days. Now it's, like I say, it's been tarted up. You've got a gate here, and my dad's brother, who also grew up here, his wife now owns the place, although nobody has seen her come and visit for a long time. Apparently she's not very well, and my dad and his brother passed away some time ago now. But yes, lots and lots of memories of here too.
Fancy yourself. Qui bisogna assumere del personale. Io sono libero se avete bisogno.
Sono stufo di stare qui.
Dai.